Sorry.
I said before, I don't know why you didn't hear me. Okay. So some people say, oh, if we choose evil, if we choose good over evil, it's showing that we're choosing Hashem. That gives us more merit. It shows that we recognize Hashem and His goodness. Otherwise, like us doing things for Hashem is not really so genuine. We're just doing it because that's what we're kind of like programmed to do. There's nothing bad to do. So it's like choose this one good thing over this one good thing, big deal. But if you're choosing good over evil, it's a whole different story. But in general, how is it that Hashem wills this bad or evil to exist? And not just that when there is all this evil in the world, like think about terrorists, think about wars, we're sitting and we're fighting it. We're using so much resource and so much time and so much energy and so much everything to try and combat evil in the world. So imagine if we didn't have any wars, and we didn't have any evil, we didn't have any terrorists, imagine everyone was just able to, grow and pursue in what they're doing without all like this crazy opposition or crazy things that are going on in the world. Imagine if imagine if the US would not have to put any money into war, into fighting terrorism or fighting, any of these kinds of things, how much money we would save. We could build up so much more, we could help so many more countries. So why is it that Hashem put this in it to, we should just get rid of it, Why did He put this? Why did He make that there's an idea of evil in the world? Or like, even if He wanted us to choose between good and bad or good and evil, He could have taken away the big, really bad things and just left the little bad things, So fine, I can eat a pork sandwich or not, or whatever it is. But to have to sit and fight these big evil forces in the world that are trying to, destroy and hurt and whatever it is. Why is that? So have anyone here have any idea of why evil exists? If you think of one sentence, why do you think God put evil in this world?
I mean, really, I would say just for free choice. We were created and we have options and we can make our own decisions and we can choose to do.
But do we need to have a Holocaust for that?
If we have choice, then we have to be able to choose to be able to do the most evil things. Otherwise, there's not a real choice. We're just robots or
not human, basically.
Not human. I think it's one rabbi and he spoke once. He's like, you tell a bird fly, it flies. You tell a fish swim, it swims. You tell a human, don't eat from that tree. And they go, which tree was that again? It's
yeah.
Also, it propels us forward in some ways. The Holocaust was such a terrible event, but it helped to found the state of Israel. The military, we spent so much money on it, but it technologically advances us. Most of our, well, I don't know about most, but a lot of our technological advancement has come from the US military.
That's true. Okay. So today,
sorry, I would love to know your feedback on that.
We're gonna go through this class and maybe we'll get a little bit better of an idea.
Okay.
So it's gonna take a long time to get all the feedback. But today we discussed the mitzvah to erase Amalek. The one of the mitzvahs in this week's parsha, it talks about the war with Amalek, and it says, we have to erase Amalek. And through learning about this, we're going to try and get to the answer. Okay, so who was Amalek? Amalek was the first person to start up with the Jewish nation when the Jews left Egypt. So the Jews left Egypt, and everyone saw the greatest miracles of God, the biggest powers of God, and the Jewish people were untouchable when they left Egypt, and no one was going to start with them. They all knew how. They just saw what happened to Pharaoh and to the Egyptians, and oh no, we're not starting up. But Amalek was a nation or a tribe that they just hated the Jewish people. They just hated Hashem and the Jewish people. And they were the first people to start up with the Jewish people in the desert unprovoked. Okay? So they are like the original anti-Semites. They didn't care that they themselves would be burned in the process or hurt in the process, as long as they can lessen the the awesomeness or the grandiousness of who Hashem was. So as long as they were able to lessen that or make the Jews not look as strong as they were, they didn't care that they would get hurt, as long as they can kind of diminish Hashem's power in the world. And the mitzvah that we have here, I'm going to read in text number 1, is that we need to fight this hatred. Next one. Okay.
I had a quick question that I'm sorry about what you said about Amalek. Are you referring to the word anti-Semitism that it started with Amalek, or are you referring to something else? I just wanted to make sure I understood what you meant.
Am I referring to what?
You said anti-Semite, so in general, the subject of anti-Semitism, are you saying that it started with Amalek, that
Yes,
category?
he was the original anti-Semite.
Okay, thank you.
Anti-Semitism stems from him, yes. Okay.
Okay.
Text number 1, I want to read it.
Remember what Amalek did to you during your journey shortly after you left Egypt. Erase the memory of Amalek from beneath the heavens. Do not forget.
Okay, so interesting. We have to remember to erase his memory. So how do you remember something if you have to erase it? That sounds kind of like doesn't make 100% sense. But so how can we remember anything? So it's not that we need to forget him and that's it. We don't want to forget what he did to us. And that's through text number 2. I'm gonna read it. Sure, Lisa.
God commanded us to remember what Amalek did to us when he hurried to be the first to harm us. We are commanded to rouse our passions to fight and hate him. We must always remember this commandment and never allow our hatred of Amalek to fade with time.
Okay, so you need to have this you really have to you have to be very passionate about making sure to stop Amalek, to destroy Amalek's, what he's done. And you can't forget, so it has to be all riled up within you. So I've seen, and just something I've noticed is that I've noticed many descendants of Holocaust survivors do have this very strong passion, against the Nazis. What the Nazis did to their families, or if they notice anything that smells of anti-Semitism, they right away go on top of it. They right away, yeah, we can't let this happen again. We can't let this be. And sometimes you think, oh my gosh, they're overreacting, or it's come on, if this happened already, whatever many years ago. But no, this is what remembering Amalek, erasing his memory means. It means that you can't you can't come indifferent about it, and you have to kind of remember it. Kind of has to be there, that that you always remember it. And when you remember it, it's no, we can't let this happen. We have to destroy it. We can't let it continue. We have to erase what Amalek trying to do to us. And you have to have that passion within you not to forget. So they always have that right. There's that slogan after the Holocaust, never forget. So that's what it is. And interesting to note, they say that Haman was a descendant of Amalek, and many people say that Hitler was a descendant of Amalek. And so the mitzvah that we have in this week's parsha is that don't let the anti-Semite live it down. Don't just let them get away with it. You have to keep up their remembrance and remember their terrible deeds. And so the mitzvah is to fight him and to obliterate his influence. So this is it's a mitzvah of remembering, okay? To remember, you have to remember something. That is the basic of the mitzvah. Now, there's another mitzvah that has to do with remembering. And what is that? Text number 3. Someone online, Regina, want to read it? All right.
Sure.
Okay.
Remember the day of the Shabbat to sanctify it.
Okay. So, we need to remember Shabbos, right? So the word Zachor, remember, is the same Zachor that you have to remember Amalek. So one is to remember Amalek. Now we have something, remember Shabbos. Now what's interesting is that there is there's a midrash where the people said, hey, we can't do both. We can't remember 2 things at once. Is it that hard to remember 2 things? I have to go to the store and buy what? I have to buy carrots and onions. And then you get to the store and say, oh no, what did I have to get? I remember the carrots, what was the other thing, right? And you come home and say, oh no, the onions, right? Was it that? But you can figure it out, you can remember it, you can write it down. So is it so difficult for the Jewish people to remember 2 things? Shabbos and Amalek. Why? So let's read text number 4. They say, hey, we can't do this. Eileen, you want to read?
Sure. The Jewish people complained. Moses, our teacher, one passage reads, remember what Amalek did to you. Another passage reads, remember the day of the Shabbos to sanctify it. How can both prevail?
So is it really that difficult to remember two things at the same time? Now, to add more things to remember into the mix, guess what? It's not only two things that we have a mitzvah to remember, there's more things we have the mitzvah to remember. And this is text number 5. Okay, I guess
Back to me.
Yeah.
There are 6 constant commandments. Ooh. There are 6 constant commandments that we may not forget all our lives for even a moment. They are A, believe in God. B, reject all other deities. C, believe in God's unity. D, love God. E, fear God. And F, resist the temptations of our heart and eyes.
Okay, so these are things Jewish people always have to remember. So why is there all of a sudden this complaint that we can't remember Shabbos and Amalek? Now, in addition, at the end of davening, at the end of our prayers, there is a list of things that we have to say. Oh, wait a second. Did I jump ahead? Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't jump ahead, but you guys in the PowerPoint, people online can't see this. Do you guys have the chart in your?
Yeah.
Okay. So there are 6 things that we say at the end of davening every day that we need to remember, okay? And that is the Exodus of Egypt, standing at Mount Sinai to receive the Torah, Amalek's attack, our ancestors' betrayal of God in the desert when they worshipped the golden calf, Moses' sister Miriam was punished with skin disease, Saras, for gossiping about Moses, and the Shabbos. So these things, which includes Amalek and Shabbos in it, are things we always have to remember. We repeat this every single day. So now we have a total of 12 things to remember, because we looked at text number 5, and then this chart, where we read every day in davening. Why is it, or 12 things, why are the people complaining about remembering Shabbos and Amalek? What is so different about that? No one complained about remembering all the other things we need to remember. Okay. Anyone have any clue or idea?
They seem such opposites.
Exactly. They're very opposite. And why are they opposite? Let's read text number 6. Okay, it's your turn, Lisa.
Moses replied, "You can't compare a goblet of wine to a cup of vinegar. They are both cups. This is a cup to observe and sanctify the Shabbat, and this is a cup to destroy and uproot the descendants of Amalek."
Okay, so what does this mean? What does this have to do with anything? Okay, we're going to discuss that. Here we have a cup of wine and vinegar, guys. So I want to be able to put this on the projector. You guys can see it.
Put up like a TV screen.
Yeah.
And then you'll be like, "I promise it's only for class."
No, but I want everyone to like the people.
Why is there wine and vinegar?
That's a good question. That's what we're going to discuss. Okay.
Okay.
So, so as Lisa said, Shabbos and Amalek seem like polar opposites. How can we have 2 opposites and remember both of these? Okay, so how are they opposites? What is the mitzvah of Shabbos? Why does he remember the Shabbos day? What was Shabbos? What does it signify? What does it remind us of?
Rest, when God rested after creation.
Creation. So creation reminds us that Hashem made the world, and that means he's over the world, right? He's, he is everything. He's the creator. Okay, so let's read text number 7. Virginia, want to read it?
Yes. This is
This is a commandment.
Okay. This is a commandment to remember the greatness of this day and to fix faith in creation in our hearts. As the Torah states, remember the Shabbat to sanctify it, for God made the world in 6 days and rested on the 7th. Should I read the second or just the first?
Yes, continue, thanks.
We sanctify it over a cup of wine because it is human nature to be aroused by wine. I'm sorry, this is a satiates?
Satiates.
Thank you. Satiates and causes joy. I have often explained that our inspiration is more permanent when we translate it into the physical acts. Thus, our sages taught that those who prefer bread over wine sanctify the Shabbat over bread, for we are each aroused by the things we crave.
Okay, thank you. So Shabbos is something, so Hashem created everything, us included. And during the week, we're busy doing our regular daily stuff. We're kind of like caught up in whatever it is that we're working on. But then Shabbos, we kind of like sit back and relax. When we sit back and relax on Shabbos, we kind of like have time to think about Hashem and think about creation, think about how Hashem made everything. and realize that he is the one and only, and he's the one, he like our destiny is in his hand, and everything is in his control, and it kind of like, and he constantly creates the world into existence. So it kind of gives us that reminder, and we have time to think about it because we're not just so busy doing all of the other things that we're doing on Shabbos. So Shabbos is a major reminder that Hashem created the world, and he is the world. He is totally involved in the world, and whatever he wills is that's what happens. Okay, let's read text number 8. Oh, second. Okay. Text number 8. Eileen. Actually, Malka, do you want to read? No? Okay, fine. Go for it, Eileen, then.
Okay. In his goodness, God constantly renews the works of creation each day.
Okay, so without Hashem, if Hashem for a moment decided that he did not want the world to exist anymore, guess what? Poof, it would all be gone. So only because he's constantly willing it to exist, does it exist. And this is what Shabbos reminds us of. So we should also constantly think of him and constantly think of what he wants us to do. Say, hey, Hashem created this world. I'm only here because of Hashem's kindness and Hashem's, graciousness. I better do something for him. I want to do what he wants from me because he put me here and he allows me to be here and he wills me to exist. Now, Amalek is exactly the opposite. Amalek knew that really he had no chance against Hashem, but he still attacked. He attacked just to lessen Hashem's awe in the world, just to try to take away that awareness that God is in complete control of the whole entire world. Okay? He wanted to take away that feeling from people, get people a little anxious, stir them up. Okay, so text number 9. Back
to me. Amalek had a different attitude. Our sages of blessed memory described him as one who knows his master and deliberately rebels. Amalek was impudent rather. He did not lack knowledge of God. On the contrary, he knew and recognized God's greatness. Nevertheless, he refused to be intimidated. His impudence and audacity drove him to reject God without reason or justification. Like impudent people who know they are inferior, yet stand up brazenly to powerful or righteous people.
Okay, so some people like are agnostic. They don't care about Hashem. They forget about Hashem and just whatever. They just move on. It doesn't make a difference to them. But Amalek knew, and he purposely did what he did. He purposely wanted to rebel. He wanted to show everyone, hey, we don't care. We're going to fight him. Trying to to deny Hashem and deny Hashem that he created the world. So he he had his very specific agenda. So he knew, but he just wanted to be anti-God. I don't know if you
Can I just say something on that? I feel
Sure.
like Amalek felt that he could do whatever he wanted to do in terms of mighty and everything without God's help. And maybe he didn't think that he could be even mightier with God's help. I don't know if maybe that was a thought that
he
came
specifically
across.
wanted to deny Hashem, wanted to try to show people there's no God. So I don't know if you guys are quite a few years ago already by now, there was this whole atheist group that took down, they took down there was nativity scenes that used to be on the ocean front and as well as a menorah, and they kind of fought it, and they kind of got the city not that they won, and didn't take the city to court, but the
city agreed.
So the city agreed because what did they do? So they said, hey, why did only these groups get to put things up? Why can't any type of group put something up? So then the city has to say, okay, we're opening, we have this many slots to put stuff in. We'll do a lottery. Whoever gets those slots will gets to put up their whatever it is they want. Okay, it's obviously only in 1 week in December or the week of Hanukkah, whatever it was at that time, And then they did the slots, and let's say, so we got our menorah, thank God, won its slot. I don't know if it was a real lottery, if it was rigged. And let's say the other religion, they got a certain amount of slots, they didn't get all their slots. And then there was 4 or 5 slots, I don't know how many slots, that ended up with the atheists. What do the atheists do? Instead of just putting up a nice scene or a nice picture, nice art or something, they put up scenes or whatever things depicting making fun of God, making fun of religion, really in a really not nice way, really bad. I don't know if anyone else here remembers it, but I remember years ago. I don't know. Anyway, so So it's like they were they're trying to like, not like, okay, live and let live, but like, no, why, we're not gonna let this, other people show that there's a God, that show that there's there's a religion. They want to like just like try to like totally get it taken down. You know what I'm saying? It was like not just okay, everyone was like,
Yeah, it's not, we're not gonna say, hey, there's an alternative.
right, they were just
let's
trying
do
to
this
rebel
way.
against this whole
They're
idea.
gonna burn a Bible,
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
or
Yeah. Okay. So so as I said before, that there are people who said that Hitler was from Amalek, or definitely the Nazis could be compared to Amalek, the way that they, what they did to the Jewish people. So besides for hurting the Jewish people in a physical way, one of the first things they did was that humiliated them and tried to stop them from doing religious practices, like humiliated their religious practices. They took the rabbis and made them do like very humiliating things in front of everybody. So they wanted to try to like demoralize everyone, but first by destroying the religion, and then by destroying the people themselves. And what's interesting is that this text number 10, this is an article that was written during that time in a underground newspaper that was, that was somehow they were able to keep it, get it, and it's in the Yad Vashem archives in Jerusalem, I think. So let's see, text number 10, where are we up to? Eileen? Are we up to you, or what?
I think it's
Lisa.
Oh, sorry, Lisa, I'm sorry.
Amalek and Haman are targeting the Jews less as a people than as a divine people. Therefore, their war is directly mainly against the God of Israel. They object to his Torah. They are unaccountable with a God who sees everything and demands an accounting for wrongdoing. These things are not to the Amalekites' liking. They don't want them. They therefore wish to destroy the Jewish people who stand for perfect faith in the God of Israel. This is why God's name and throne cannot be complete as long as Amalek exists. Consequently, we must never forget what Amalek did to us and what he continues to do.
Very interesting. So now we see who Amalek is and how it's so opposite of what Shabbos is. We're going to go through some things. So Shabbos is trying to testify to Hashem's creation, and Amalek is trying to rebel against this idea. Shabbos is holy, right? And Amalek is devoid of any holiness, devoid of any, godliness. So the Jews in the desert said, hey, how can we remember both of these things? How can we think about these things, the idea of Shabbos, a holy, beautiful thing that reminds us of Hashem's creation, and then think about Amalek, who was so opposite. Where should our passion be? In this beautiful happiness and goodness of it, or in the passion to going, to destroy Amalek. Oh, look what he's out to get us, look what he's out to hurt us. So there is a story that the previous Chabad Rebbe, from Yosef Yitzhak, says about a retired soldier in the Tsar's army. And he was sharing a memory with his friends. And he told his friends that in the military, in the Russian military, is like a very, a very strict or strong hierarchy, right? There's, there's a division general who summons the sergeant. The sergeant is, super fearful of that. And he trembles in fear when he knows he's being summoned by his, by his division general. And then the division general, if he's called out by his brigade commander, he also trembles. It's not like, okay, I'm up and up and he's up and up. No, it's way higher than him. He's petrified. And then the brigade commander, he's petrified before the army chief, right? And so on goes forth until you get all the way up to the Tsar. If the top minister, war minister, has to go meet the Tsar, he's also trembling. Anything could happen to him before him. And as the this soldier, this veteran, what I guess to call him, is explaining all the different levels and how each one is so scared of the person above him, he all of a sudden he faints. And I said, hey, what's going on? I said, just conjuring up all that fear, all that, he was reliving the moment of every single type of soldier going to its higher authority. Just reliving that fear made him faint. He couldn't, handle it or hold it. And it kind of shook him up so much. And so remembering the Shabbos is really remembering that Hashem created the world. constantly, and thinking about the amazingness and the awesomeness and like joy that it brings us, that Hashem wants us here, and he made all these things for us, and he made all these beautiful things for the world. And hey, Shelley, you made it.
I did.
Hey, great. I'm recording.
I'm here.
Okay. So then if you have to start.
Thank you.
Sure. So it makes us so much aware of Hashem, and makes us want to do all that he asks. And the same thing with Amalek. When we kind of like relive Amalek, we have to know that someone fought to try and lessen Hashem's greatness in the world. That's also, it should be so strong within us that, like, not having faint, but we want to fight so much that we want to stop that. We want to erase Amalek's name and really erase his memory, because he's to show how much we oppose him. So So this is how we have to have both of these memories, and that's why the Jewish people are saying it's so hard to have both of these memories at once, because in a way they're so opposing. Now the question we're going to ask from here also is, if we start to think of Hashem is the whole creator, and he is he created the whole world, and he is the whole world, how is it possible then that he has Amalek in this world? If Amalek is against him, how did he create something that is the opposite of him, that's trying to destroy him? How is that possible? Amalek is really just a part of, they're saying there's a piece of God in Amalek too, there's a piece of God in everything. So how is this even possible? How does Hashem create an existence that is out to go against him? Like, right, if you think of anything, every, I don't know, what is it called, like, kind of like superhero, kind of like these all kind of whatever, Star Wars, Star Trek, all these kinds of things. We have like this good and evil fight in all these like movies. Is there anyone who ever creates something that's out to coming back and saying that that's part of him, it's also destroying him at the same time? Usually not. Usually some outer force. And what we're saying here is, if everything is God's creation, Amalek's not really an outer force. It's really part of God to a certain extent. So how can Hashem make something that's going to rebel against him? Amalek isn't a separate entity, but he's really part of the world, which is part of the world that Hashem created. So it is even more of a paradox. So now we're going to try to understand the answer that Moshe gave the Jewish people about the wine and the vinegar. Okay? So what was Moshe's response? He said, right, he talked about the wine, which we said is like Shabbos, and the vinegar, can we say that yet? Or maybe not. Vinegar is like a month. I guess we didn't discuss that yet. Okay. So how does wine taste? Who likes wine? Who wants a little sip? Even if it's dry, right?
It's sweet.
Okay, you buy wine's like a nice tasty. People come to the table to drink a glass of wine, right? You get together to drink with someone a glass of wine. How about vinegar? Does anyone ever say, okay, come, let's have a glass of vinegar? Unless you're like watching these health, right? 1 minute to daily health. Just drink
apple cider
vinegar. Just this vinegar, right? But otherwise, who could drink that vinegar? It's gross, right? Yeah. So, what's interesting is how is vinegar made? Let's read 11. Hey, look what we're up to. We're up to Regina. Back to Regina.
A sour liquid obtained by fermentation of dilute alcoholic liquids.
Okay, so basically, vinegar is sour wine, right? So, right, if whoever knows that we've made wine in the past, and yes, if you don't take care of it, it doesn't go right, it becomes like vinegar. It goes sour. And the word vinegar itself actually is a derivative of wine, because vin is wine, and eger means acid. So vinegar is when your wine becomes acidic. It's not good wine anymore. Okay, 11b. Eileen, are you able to read? Okay, we'll go to Shelley then. Shelley, if you're up to it.
Okay. So what happens when a bottle of wine turns to vinegar? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you hear me okay? Okay. Without getting into all the technical details, the wine has simply gotten infected with bacteria. This bacteria occurs naturally in the air and on fruit. This tends to acetic acid building up in the wine in combination with too much exposure to oxygen. When this happens, you'll immediately notice that your wine will take on a sharp vinegar smell that's also been described as being like nail polish remover.
Oh, that's interesting.
Hmm.
Okay. So Moshe used the analogy to show that really it comes from the same source. Wine and vinegar are both from the same source. Shabbos and Amalek both come from Hashem. But when one sours the Hashem in it, and one tries to sour Hashem in the world, it's like acidified. It becomes acid, and that's the vinegar. So Amalek is like vinegar. It took something good. It took, right? Hashem's good world, Hashem created, and he's trying to deny that. He's trying to take away the goodness in the world, and that is like the vinegar. So let's read the Rebbe's words. He's going to explain.
To me.
Yeah, guys, that's what she said.
When we examine the concept of Amalek from the perspective of Jewish mysticism, we discover that Amalek, represented by vinegar, is also rooted in holiness. How can anything deliberately rebel against God if there is none besides him? It is only possible because there is nothing that God cannot do.
Okay, so when we think of Hashem as being infinite and can do anything, and we think of all the physical things, right? He can change nature if he wanted. He split the sea. He, brought all those plagues. Even today, there's, sometimes, there's miracles that we sometimes see that, like, when there's a Scud missile that doesn't go into Israel, but somehow turned or whatever it is. But Hashem could also change conceptual things.
You always see it after earthquakes and natural disasters that someone survives 1 week, and scientifically you can't survive more than 3 days without water, but they
Right.
survived a week and a half.
Right. But besides for physical things that we've seen Hashem can change, right? Hashem can change nature. Hashem can also change conceptual things. So when you think of what is 2 + 2 equals
Usually 4.
4. But how Hashem decides that 2 and 2 is equal 5, he can make that happen because he's the one that created the world. He can change it however he wants it. And if he decides that this is a rectangle, but he decides that it's going to be a circle, he can, make this concept, make it into a circle. So for us, it totally doesn't make sense. It's totally beyond our, limitations of understanding, limitations of how our brains work and how we see the world. But for Hashem, anything is possible, and it's not something that really can really understand. But he can make any concept possible. So if he let a rebel exist, something's going to rebel against him exist, even though God is one, so it still can be this rebel or this evilness in the world. Okay, and so he could still occupy the space. It's not like he's leaving space and letting something against him. He's not like bringing some evilness into the world, and that's a separate thing, and like making space for it. Hashem is still filling all that space, but he's allowing the evil to rest within his own space, which is a very hard thing for us to understand. So when we remember Amalek, within, it's something more than when we remember Shabbos. When we remember Shabbos, we're thinking, hey, no evil exists. Shabbos. I mean, if theoretically saying evil, Shabbos is a beautiful thing, nothing about evilness. It's just all joy, all nice, all wonderful. Okay, we realize Hashem created the world. But when we think about how is it that about remembering Amalek, remembering what Amalek did, we're like, wait, how is this even possible? Hashem could even take something so evil and so bad and still be within Hashem's, I want to say domain, within Hashem. That makes us think even more. That's an impossible concept for us to really understand. And really, Hashem can do that too. That makes us think even more about Hashem. Now that makes us realize how much greater Hashem really is. That he can still be there with creating something against him to try and diminish him, and still Hashem is still his full power. So our job and what we have to remember, what we have to do is to destroy Amalek. We have to destroy what Amalek is doing in this world. So why do we need to have Amalek? Why do we have this purpose of having this evil in the world? Why does it have to be there to begin with? So Amalek is trying to show us So sorry, his Amalek is not really trying, he's not trying to show us that Hashem is all consuming, and by rebelling against Hashem, he's like gonna stop Hashem or make Hashem more limited, but he just wants to rebel. And what we see when we look at Amalek, when we see why is Amalek here, when we see what Amalek is doing, we realize how much greater Hashem is, and the only reason Amalek really exists is because Hashem allowed it to exist, and Hashem allowed this impossible, concept to exist of evil within his own self, that he is all good. Then it makes us think how much greater Hashem really is, how much greater Hashem really is in this world, and that even though maybe Amalek trying to stop the show, like, oh, Hashem doesn't really exist, it only shows us even more how much Hashem exists, because he's able to create such a concept in the world. So when we have to, the mitzvah to remember Amalek, the main mitzvah is to destroy this rebellion, destroy this idea that this Amalek is coming and trying to deny Hashem. Any force in the world that's trying to deny Hashem is just for us. It's just something for us that we have to destroy. That we have to stop it and bring out more of Hashem's goodness, Hashem's presence in the world. Okay. So let's look a little bit more at the vinegar concept.
It's my turn, yay.
Okay. Let's just read this here. Amalek indicates that God is omnipresent even in the face of evil.
No,
so he's never
vinegar restores the soul.
Okay, so what's just interesting thing about vinegar? So what does vinegar do, right? There are different things about vinegar. People like vinegar, they hate vinegar, right? So we said it doesn't taste good, but there are maybe certain good qualities about vinegar, and you just read 13a, which I can give them if you actually read it, it's really quick. Vinegar restores the soul. What does that mean? So when someone, let's say they say when a person's like faint, if you put like a strong smell like vinegar, it's gonna wake them up. It's gonna restore their soul, it's gonna wake, kind of bring them back. Another interesting thing is vinegar. So we said vinegar once was really wine, which was beautiful, great drink. What bracha do we make on wine? Hagafen. But when it turns to vinegar, we don't make hagafen anymore. We make shahapel. Okay, so that's read 13b. Regina?
When a food item spoils, the blessing recited before eating it must be altered. Rather than chanting a blessing for this particular food category of wine, we recite the blessing that encompasses all food groups, that his word made all. When wine goes to vinegar and becomes so acidic that people refrain from drinking it, the blessing for it should be one drink it.
Even though we said in the previous text, vinegar restores the soul, if you're walking and you're dying of thirst, right? And someone says, oh, here, have a bottle of cold vinegar, right? No, thank you. But here, have a bottle of cold water. Yeah, that's what you want. So vinegar, you can't just go ahead and drink it. You can only if you really, really need it, then you take a little whiff of it or whatever it is, right? But it's too acidic to just drink as a drink. So vinegar may be wine gone bad, but still has some inherent value. It's still because it came from wine, and wine is a good thing, it still has something good about it. So Amalek, since it's rooted in Hashem, it went sour. It's like, person gone sour, whatever it is, but still has value, and there's still a lesson that we can learn from it. And let's read it. Rebbe explained that in text number 14. So here, before we say it, there is value to his acid, like Amalek's acid, because it's only through his acidic rebellion that we discover the true extent of God's omnipresence and omnipotence. Okay, and now we will read, one second, text number 14. Who are we up to? Oh, so we're up to, Eileen, are you there, or should we go to Shelley? Okay, I guess Shelley.
Okay. All right. It's really teeny on my screen, but I'll do my best.
Oh.
Moses implied all this by saying, a cup of wine cannot be compared to a cup of vinegar. Midrash Pirkei, Rabbi Eliezer 44. Shabbat and Amalek are both cups through which we are filled with the revelation of sacred godliness, because Amalek is also rooted in holiness. However, the two cups are not equal. Shabbat cup urges us to observe and sanctify, while the Amalek cup urges us to punish. By remembering Shabbat, we reveal God's omnipresence on earth. Remembering Amalek doesn't reveal God's presence on earth. Only when we punish Amalek, crush and obliterate all movements that aim to rebel against God, is God's true omnipotence revealed. Thus, vinegar is not an apt metaphor for Amalek. When we obliterate Amalek, a cup of vinegar is revealed as a medium that restores and revitalizes our soul. This is because remembering to destroy Amalek demonstrates that Amalek's existence derives exclusively from God's unlimited omnipotence.
Okay, so vinegar is yucky, but it wakes you up, and fighting to obliterate Amalek is also, it's yucky, but it eventually brings out some, wakes us up in a different way. And Shabbos is just a pleasurable, nice experience. So, but doesn't give us that deeper understanding of Hashem in this world. Amalek kind of wakens us up to realize how he is, how Hashem really is. So even though they seem contradictory on the outside, we have to remember that they're both fruit. They both come from the wine. They both come from fruit of the vine, and Shabbos and Amalek both reveal Hashem's omnipresence, but Shabbos reveals it in a non-acidic atmosphere, no rebellion, and Amalek shows that even when things are acidic, we still have the, Hashem is still there. You have to fight off that acidity, and then you'll bring out the true greatness of Hashem, His omnipotence. So, as we said before, there's evil in the world, right? And why should we use all our resources to fight it? Why should we have to, why can we just not have the evil and life will be so much easier? It's to remind us that Hashem is omnipresent and omnipotent. So it's not, we never should let the evil will. We always have to fight it, but we have to, but once we fight it and once we get rid of it, then we realize Hashem's, it just brings how much greater Hashem really is in the world. I didn't want to share, didn't want to share a story that was really here any time. Okay, so I'll share a few stories about what's the story. Okay, so I don't know, quite a few years ago, Alan Dershowitz heard that some Chabad center somewhere, I don't know exactly where, was honoring Jesse Helms. And Jesse Helms was known as not a friend of Israel. And Alan Dershowitz was really upset. He said, how could a Jewish organization, an Orthodox organization, honor such a person who is not a friend of Israel? So he wrote a letter to the Rebbe, and he wrote it a little bit, not such a nice letter, like, hey, how is it that you can have your organization honor such a person that stands against Jewish values and everything and whatever? And he didn't write it in a very nice way. Anyway, Alan Dershowitz received a letter in return back from the Rebbe, a very respectful letter, and he says the Rebbe lectured him in a very gentle, nice way. What did he say? He says, you never ever give up on somebody. You never know where someone's going to go, what they're going to do, and how they're going to change. So you always have to kind of have hope or give someone a chance. And Alan Dershowitz says many years later, Jesse Helms now is really did turn around, really did change, and he might not agree with him on all the issues. He does see that he did become a big friend of Israel, and does help stand for Israel in the Senate. So you never know when evil may turn around. What it is, and I guess each way you would have to fight for it in a different way depending on the situation. There wasn't one other story. Oh, just about anti-Semites and their bad endings. Okay. So this story took place in the early 1900s. There was a family, the Paltiel family, and they lived in a small Belarusian village called Zhidivlovo. And it was under the Tsar. And the family, what they did, they had a logging business, and they lived near the forest, and I guess they're able to, you know, cut the trees, log, whatever it is. Okay, so one day they wanted to add an addition to their home, and they started to, and they had their son ask at that time it was the fifth Chabad Rebbe, the Rebbe Rashab, you know, for a blessing that, you know, all should go well, that they should add this addition to their home, and the Rebbe gave them a bracha and said yes. Okay, so they started to do this addition, and meanwhile the local head of the village where they lived got wind of it, and he did not happy about it. His name was Ivan Stefanovich, and he, you know, wanted to make problems for the Jewish people. He was an anti-Semite, and he saw that they were building onto their house. So what did he do? He quickly went and he made a new law that says whoever does any construction in their house needs approval.
At the first HOA.
And if you don't get approval, it's a crime, you know, get in trouble. So all of a sudden a letter comes to the Paltiel home and says, hey, you better stop building right now, or you must appear in the court, you know, in the bigger city, the city of Pachep, and you're charged with breaking the law, you know, this new law. You don't have a permit. And the families don't know what we do. So the Mr. Paltiel, he right away sends a letter to the Rebbe Rashab and says, what should we do? Help us. And the Rebbe sends a letter back, don't cower from evil, continue building without fear, as Hashem's blessing is with you. The day before the trial, this Stefanovich, this anti-Semite, comes to the Paltiel house with a whole bunch of papers, says, I'm gonna get you, your end is near, you know, here's all the court papers, I'm gonna, you know, you're gonna pay, you're gonna get in trouble, and you're gonna lose your house, you're gonna lose your business. He starts threatening him with all kinds of stuff. Anyway, their 11-year-old daughter, Manya, she was playing with a friend, and in those days, trains, at least in their part of town, was pretty new. And one of the attractions what little kids would do is they would go off to the train station to watch the trains, because it's such a new thing. It was so exciting to see a train. And they were standing, you know, watching the trains, and as they were standing there, this Ivan Stefanovich, this anti-Semite, wherever he was at the village, the leader of the village, was standing also because he was on his way to the big city to, like, you know, bring the court case, you know, just get ready for the court date. And as he's sitting there by the train, he wanted to, like, show how great and how, like, awesome he is. And so instead of, like, when the train came into the station and the stop for everyone to, like, get on normally, they wanted to make a whole big deal out of it. And as soon as the train started to move, that's when he decided to jump onto the train. You know, like in the movies, you see all those, like, people jumping on the train as it's leaving, but he, like, did it on purpose. He wanted to, like, kind of make a big deal. I'm so great, I can even jump on the running train. But when he did this, his coat got caught in the wheel or something, and unfortunately, it dragged him down, and he got crushed underneath the train.
Whoa.
And the girl, Manya, she came running home to her parents, and she started to scream, don't worry, he's gone, he's not coming back. And at the funeral, like, I guess a lot of people, he was a big guy from their little town, and everyone was at the funeral. At the funeral, one of the Jews heard the wife, like, whispering behind the coffin to, you know, like, you know, whispering to the dead, and to her husband, dead husband, she's saying, I know it, I told you not to start with those Jews. Their God is powerful, you don't start up with them. And that was the end of the anti-Semite Ivan Stefanovich.
Wow.